What if we followed Jesus every day? What if we listened for his voice every day? What if the good news of Jesus changed how we work, educate, recreate, and even do our leisure time or spend time with family every day? Leaving discipleship and evangelism to the paid professionals means that we miss out on some of the best parts of our walk with Jesus. This series is designed to equip us to be the people of God in the everyday, because every square on the calendar belongs to God and is a chance for us to enjoy him. Go to doxa-church.com to learn more about Doxa, find service times, or support the making of disciples of Jesus in the everyday.
Good morning, Doxa. We're going to be reading scripture from book of Genesis, chapter 12, verse 1 to 3. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." This is the word of the Lord. Please be seated.
Please turn in your Bibles to Louis Vuitton chapter 4, verse. I think they think you're stupid. Like I really believe that about marketers. Mark Sayers quotes from this Louis Vuitton commercial in his 2012 book, The Road Trip That Changed the World. And I think the point of the commercial is, as silly as it is, and I didn't see a single Louis Vuitton anything in there, but I think it's that we deeply desire adventure. Like we deeply desire journey. Even in small ways. And we even spend our entire lives trying to create adventure for ourselves. And the point is of the commercial, like the point of all of this is that no longer can I be fulfilled by what is here and now, right? Like I can't be fulfilled by what's here in front of me, but there must be other possibilities that await us that we must uncover. Like I've got to go find something different. Like in and of myself, I'm insufficient. Mark Sayers in that book, he says this to this point. We're addicted to the thought of leaving, to tantalizing possibilities of where we could be going, rather than the concrete reality of actual arrival. We are addicted to being on the road, of having the next destination hovering over the horizon. Thus, life, identity, and faith are now viewed as things in process, not yet fully formed. The security of knowing, of arriving, kills the buzz of contemporary life's journey. Does that not feel true? Why does a commercial like that, believe it or not, win awards? Which it did, by the way, when it came out. It won a lot of awards for advertising. It wins awards because it aligns with our deep desire for adventure that you and I all feel and experience, or journey, as they call it. Or as Louis Vuitton says, we use adventure not just to vacation, but to discover ourselves. Our adventures sort of piece us together, right? We are nothing but a collection of the journeys that we have been on. It helps us come to grips with our limits, and it even reveals that we might not have any limits at all. You see, the commercial helps us acknowledge something that we ourselves already know about ourselves, and that's this, that you and I feel like something's missing. Like something's missing. My existence, my reality, my persona, who I am, my identity, something is deeply missing. Life is not complete as it is. It lacks something. I lack something. So we gotta go in search of it. We gotta go find it. What is it? Something's missing. Maybe I go after in a sports championship, Tom Brady, he was famously asked, what's your favorite Super Bowl? And he won 7, and he said the next one. Right? The Super Bowl wasn't enough, but I go search for it in a Super Bowl. Maybe I look for it in an IPO. Maybe this is how I strike it rich. Maybe this is how the adventure that I find myself in. Maybe this is the defining moment of who I am. Maybe it's a trip across Europe, or maybe it's even something as simple as video games. Video games, which, to be fair, is an actual way people engage in adventure, although they're not moving very much. Adventure creates the person. They asked the question, and you remember the question, does the person create the adventure or the adventure create the person? The point they're trying to make is that the adventure creates the person. That's why you undertake it. That's why you need a Louis bag while you're doing it, right? We go one step further and say that's true, but not only do adventures help us find what is missing, adventures make us who we are. They define us. So maybe through going on many adventures that you're gonna go on in your life, the question we're trying to answer truly isn't, as Louis Vuitton asks, where will life take you? Maybe the question you're trying to answer in your heart of hearts when you go on adventures is, who am I? The great irony of questions like these and the questions the commercial poses, the question of who I am, the great irony is that God designed, no pun intended, you to be whole. He designed you with the answer to the question, who am I? He designed you complete. He designed you knowing the answer to that big question. And what happened? Well, we talk about it all the time because it's so important. It wasn't until Eve bit that apple and Adam cowered into the bushes and hid from God. It wasn't until those things that we lost our identity. We don't know who we are anymore. And now, ever since then, sin's ushered in the world, and you and I can't answer the question, who am I? So we go in search of it. East of Eden, left the garden in search of the answer, who am I? Why do I feel incomplete? Why am I not enough? Funny enough, though, God decided he was sick of you not having the answer to that question. And he would unironically embark on his own journey, his own adventure to help you answer the question, who am I once again? You see, guys, our God is a God of adventure. This is an adventurous God. Not only is he the author of it, he is a God of it. And today we're going to look at the very beginning of the great adventure God shows us he goes on in order to help you solve the question, who am I? This is the beginning of it. And this great adventure is going to travel down many centuries, traveled through many different people, but it's only going to go down one family line and lead to one specific place. It's beautiful. God's great adventure all begins with one man, his man named Abram, soon to be Abraham. And it's through his story we're going to learn about adventure. You see, I'll just lay all my cards here on the table, I guess. As a pastor, my goal in life, if you're not a Christian, is to get you to become one. I want you to experience the love of Jesus in your life to the point where you'd give your life to him and go follow him. Okay, the reason I do that is because God sends his son Jesus into the world, but he does it in a specific way. He does it through a family line, and it begins with this guy, Abraham, who begets Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, and then there's all these journeys that happen, and out of the other end comes Jesus, who lives a perfect life, who dies the death that was meant for us and resurrects from the grave. I want you to believe that message and to live it out. So cards on the table, that's what I'm after today. But I do want to tell you secondarily that God is a God of adventure, and it's through the adventure that he goes on and the adventure he invites you on that he's going to actually do the things I just talked about, where Jesus is going to redeem the world and reconcile it to himself. This is what's happened. So it's through this story, Abraham, we're going to learn a ton about adventure. We might even ask the question, I don't know, like, what is adventure anyway? Seems like a fair question. What does partaking in adventure actually today mean for us? Like, I didn't know that was a Christian thing, going on adventures. And why you can and should, by the way, use adventures in your life to share as a tool to share the gospel of Jesus. And they're actually quite potent to do so. So first, if you've got a Bible, please open up Genesis chapter 12. We're going to be in verse 1. We're going to go through verse 1 through 7, but we're only going to go here 1 through 3. So I'm going to read it. It'll be on the screen if you don't have a Bible. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your home country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will and him who dishonors you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Now, I don't know if that hits you a particular way, but this is actually a very, very important, it's actually a foundational text in all of the Bible. God begins this great adventure with something we call, as Christians and theologians call, the Abrahamic covenant. Now, throughout the Bible, there are 5 big covenants, or like large, strong promises God makes to his people that he's going to accomplish. And it's through those covenants that we essentially uncover and see the wonderful adventure that God is on to reconcile sinners to himself. And the very first of which is or not the very first, but one of the biggest ones here perhaps, is the Abrahamic covenant. It's a huge one. It's a huge one. And this is a covenant that God makes with Abraham, where he's going to essentially tell him to go to a land where God is going to bless him and his offspring. And that's through that land and through those people that God will bless the multitude of the nations. So this is not a small promise. Like, hey, I'll pick you up some food on the way home. It's not like that. This is way bigger. Like, hey, go to this specific land, have offspring, and it's through your family line, I'm going to change the entire world. That's a big promise. You see now why the Abrahamic covenant is such a big deal. God promises Abraham a huge family that will inherit this big piece of land in Canaan, and it will bring universal blessing to all humanity. Now, Abraham, in order to position himself, guys, to be in position to receive this blessing and to be a blessing to all humanity, he's going to have to traverse some serious challenges, isn't he, if you know the story. It's going to get rough for Abraham. But if he does that, he'll be in perfect position to be in the moment where God's going to facilitate his adventure, God's adventure, through him, okay? Which kind of leads me to this question. It's an easy one, and I already asked it, which is, what is adventure exactly? Because sometimes you and I, our lives are so comfortable, we got to step out and ask that question. Because a lot of us, as much adventure as we can think of is like, I don't know, Disneyland, California adventure. Like, I don't know, you pay a couple $100 and you stand in line and go on a ride. That's like an adventure for people, okay? Like, that's not what we're talking about. Maybe your version of adventure is like watching Indiana Jones. Like, that's an adventure. What is an adventure, at least in the biblical sense? And so I've sort of scoured some Bible dictionaries and I've come up and have sort of surmised this big definition as a result. Adventure is the encountering of risks, hazardous and striking enterprise, a bold undertaking in which hazards are to be encountered, and the issue is staked upon unforeseen events, a daring feat. Usually, there is benefit to the taking on of adventure, either in a goal, a reward, or in pleasure. So there's a few things there, right? Adventure is a little more than standing in the heat online, paying a few $100s for a ticket, right? There's a little bit more going on. Now, that could be a mini adventure for your family, but the biblical sense of adventure is a little bit bigger, and there's a few things you need to see here. So first, adventure typically requires risk, right? Risk. Something is being put on the line, or you maybe perhaps are being the one that needs to put yourself out there. And it typically means there are trials that are going to happen as well. In your life, you're going to experience trials if you go on adventure. What does that mean? It means it's not going to be easy. It's not like the Goonies or something where just everything seems to work out. Like, it's not like that. There's more on the line. But typically, there is some benefit to us for undertaking a big adventure like this. There's some benefit, whether it's a reward or whether it's a goal or growth or something. This led me to think about some of the bigger adventures I've had in my life. And the biggest adventure that I've ever had was deciding to plant a church in San Francisco. And some of you have heard this story, but I remember when I decided I was going to go, I was at a conference, a church planting conference, and I was part of a church plant that we helped start in Salt Lake City, and we got to go on stage, and they talked a little bit about us when I came off. This big guy comes up to me afterwards, and he walks over to me and goes, hey, man, I got some questions for you, if you don't mind. I was like, sure. And he said, how does like a non-white dude end up in Utah? Totally unrelated to the story, but that's the question he asked me. And I was like, okay. So we kind of laugh about the answer to that. And then he goes, and he says, man, that's really cool that you're planting churches. I support church plants. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I work for a church planting organization. I was like, oh, I want to plant a church. That's so cool. And we talk a little bit about that. And I go, well, where do you live? And he goes, San Francisco. I was like, oh, I'm from San Francisco. I want to plant a church in San Francisco. He's like, oh, that's great. So we talk, and we're like, let's talk about what this might look like. So they send me off to some city like Milwaukee or something, I don't remember. And it was this city to go get assessed, right? Where they look at your marriage and they look at, is your calling, and you're competent enough to do it? Like, can you do these things? Should we support you? And we got done with that, and it was really tough. And we're like, oh, we passed, this is great. And then we went back to our lives, and you know what? Nothing changed. Because I was pretty comfortable. I mean, his life was good. So we had a nice house in Salt Lake City, and friends nearby, family nearby, kids were doing great. And then about 7 months later, I get a phone call, and I answer it. He goes, hey man, it's me again, good to see you. Hey, when are you gonna plant that church you said you were gonna plant? We're wondering if we're gonna support you or not. I was like, oh, because I was kind of hoping he wasn't gonna call. Because I kind of liked the way my life was, right? That's the truth. And so I'm like, fine. So we start praying about it, and we start talking to God about it. We even went out there and we were praying, and man, God started stirring in us about our journey. And all of a sudden, I remember we're sitting there on the couch one day, and it felt like, I think I said, I feel like we'll be telling God no if we don't go. I feel like the call on our lives is so strong to go on this adventure that we'd be telling God no if we don't do it. And so I had to call my boss and all that. But there was another reason for me I wanted to go deeply. I knew that as a dad, that one day my kids were going to grow up, and there was going to be a time where my son, as a young adult, was going to look at me before he was getting ready to embark on his adventure, whatever that was going to take him. And he was going to ask me if I had ever had a moment where I felt like God was calling me to go on an adventure. And I wanted to be able to look him in the eye and look at him and say, you know what? I feel like God called me to go, and I risked it, and I did it. And I wanted to be obedient. And I want you to be obedient too. I needed to have that so that way I could tell him that one day when he asked those questions. And so we went on this crazy adventure. Did we risk a lot? Absolutely. We gave up the comfort of everything we had. San Francisco, was it trial? Were there trials? Yes. 4% of people are in church, any church building on a Sunday morning in that city, which means it's going to be impossible to raise money, find people, all these things. Will we risk it? Some people called it stupid, literally. And maybe it was stupid. But if God's the one pushing you forward, maybe it's not stupid. This was the adventure we were called into. This is why we gravitate towards these stories, because they're so powerful. We risk comfort, we risk money, we risk relationships. The stories you and I gravitate most to follow the same pattern that my life followed, and the pattern that Abraham's life followed. Like Chronicles of Narnia, you name it, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Iron Man. These stories follow this formula. A big character, a big challenge is presented. Then a big character usually reluctantly takes on that challenge. They learn something about themselves. They fail a lot. But finally, and hopefully, they get over the hump and they complete their journey, right? That's typically how it goes. Why do you think we gravitate towards stories like that so much? Like, we could have easily not been excited about adventure as people, but there's something about adventure that makes us excited. I think there are two big reasons why you and I, we gravitate towards adventure. The first is that our Imago Dei, that we're made in God's image, we're made in God's image and likeness, and our Imago Dei inside of us, it longs to be reconnected to our Creator, and adventure appears to be one small way we can accomplish being reconnected to Him. It's one way we can do it. So like if we go off frolicking in nature or overcome a great enemy or complete some overwhelming task, we sort of breathe in a glimpse of God's glory. We breathe it in. We experience God. Most people don't even know why they gravitate towards it, right? We don't even know why. We just think, oh, we just like it. But why does every human being desire it? You might say, I don't desire adventure. Okay, fine. But you stay at home and watch other people on TV do adventures, right? So it's not as if people don't like adventure. We all like adventure. So whether you're getting lost in nature, you're traveling through new places, you're overcoming the unknown in some weird, all of those things whisper God's glory into your soul. Anytime you go on an adventure, no matter how big or small, you're experiencing the power and presence of God. Your Imago Dei longs to be on a journey with him. The second reason why we gravitate towards adventure is because I think God designed you to discover, to seek, and to accomplish. I said, I think. I know he did this for you. We read in Genesis 2 that he put Adam in the garden to work and to keep it. He gave Adam and Eve dominion over the world. You and I, we are made to cultivate. We were made to craft. We were made to build. We were made to tame. And so that desire is in us. Now it's gone haywire because of sin, but it's there, okay? We feel it, we want it. Now, I hope this summer and beyond that you guys are gonna go on a ton of different adventures this year. It's from big to small. I know I made fun of Disneyland. I hope you go to Disneyland. But I also hope you do bigger things. I hope you take new jobs, move to new cities, you overcome adversity, you get married, you fight through challenges. I hope you do all those things. But if you're gonna do them, and you're gonna do them God's way, there's a few things you need to understand from a biblical standpoint about adventure that will help you get the most use out of your journey, okay? The first thing you need to remember is that adventure truly requires trust. It does. Now, movies don't say this because it's all about flying by the seat of your pants and swinging from vines and running from giant boulders rolling towards you like Indiana Jones. But a true biblical understanding of adventure requires trust. Following God often means stepping out into the unknown and trusting God to lead the way in your life. Guys, think about Abraham. God calls Abraham to leave his country, to go to this foreign land that God would show him. And eventually he would be a blessing to the nation. But it was really the beginning of an incredible adventure filled with all these challenges and growth and blessings mixed together. Look at verse 4, Genesis 12. So Abram went as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed Haran. It's never too late for an adventure, guys. And Abram took Sarai, his wife, later named Sarah, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. So Abram, or Abraham, he's meeting with God, and God speaks to him. And what's the first thing Abram does when God says, I want you to go to this land and you're gonna be a blessing? What's the first thing he does? Verse 4, it says, so Abraham went. So he just got up and went. Now, I'm sure he considered how challenging this would be. I'm sure he weighed the options, how comfortable his life was, but he got up and went. I'm sure he considered, but he picked up and went. But there's one really massive challenge to this story that I wonder if you're picking up on, and really speaks to the level of trust they had to have. What was the big challenge Abraham and Sarah had as it relates to going to the land of milk and honey and multiplying their offspring and being a blessing of the nation? Do you remember what that challenge was? Yeah. Sarah was barren, and she's in her 70s. So not only could she not have kids her entire life, she's also well past childbearing years. And yet God said, you're gonna go to this land and we're gonna give you offspring and you're gonna bless the nations through that offspring. And he's thinking, wait a second, that's not possible. And I'm sure Sarah must have been like, whoa. You're telling me God showed up to you? Then he told me to have kids? First of all, I ain't having no kids. Look at me, like it's past that time. Imagine, right? Genesis 11 said, now Sarai was barren. She had no child. So she must have thought, how are our offspring gonna inherit any land and I'm barren and I'm well past childbearing age. This couldn't be from God, Abram, because guess what? It's not possible. How many of you have rejected an adventure you felt God was calling you to because you thought it wasn't feasible? Because you thought it wasn't possible? Because the truth is, a lot of us have callings on our lives, but the first thing we do is we go and we pull out our feasibility checklist. Well, is this even feasible? What's the money gonna look like? Am I gonna be able, is there this, is there that attached to it? And what's gonna happen if I finish it? And you got the big checklist, you're all not feasible, must not be from God. Is feasibility a prerequisite for God's call on anybody's life in the Bible? How about beating death? Lord, Jesus was like, it's not possible. You can't rise from the grave. It's not possible, not feasible. It doesn't matter. Feasibility is not part of the plan, but many of us, we reject God's plan on our life because we don't think it's actually possible to happen. If God's called you to something, a lot of people are gonna look at your life and think it's nuts. You might say, you're really gonna risk your job and share the gospel at work? Like, really? What about your career? I mean, you've worked your way. Look at all the student loan debt you've paid. You've got to maintain your career, right? You're going to move to that city. Are you crazy? Wait a second. You're going to walk away from that person? Like, how could you? And that's always going to be the conversation. Sarah must have thought, but what happened to Sarah? Well, we get that in Hebrews 11. She says, by faith, even Sarah herself, when she was unable to have children, received power to conceive offspring, even though she was past the age, since she considered that the one who had promised was faithful. Even in the midst of a lack of a feasibility plan, she looked at God and said, this man is faithful. This God is faithful. I'm going to trust him despite what the odds say. Beautiful. Faith requires trust, guys. But second thing to know about adventure requires trust. The second thing you need to know about adventure is that adventure often means trial and error and even failure amidst the journey. Abraham's story sounds right now at this point as this beautiful, wonderful story of faith. But there's some bumps in the road. I mean, just think about it. Like, do you remember the very first thing that Abraham does after he gets this promise? Do you know what it is? He gives his wife away to another man. Kind of a big failure right there. Like, tough to be fruitful and multiply and let your offspring inherit the land when your wife's with another guy. But that's what he does. He walks in the land, he gets afraid, he abandons God's calling, God's adventure on his life because he's afraid. And he says, these people will keep us alive because you're beautiful, and just tell them I'm your brother, and that way we can survive. Was that part of God's plan? No, it's not. In fact, it gets much worse. Abraham and Sarah still don't believe after many years that they're gonna get the child that they sought. And so they step out of God's plan into their own. And Sarah tells Abraham to be intimate with their servant. And they have another son that way. Not God's plan. In fact, those two family lines are still fighting wars over this today that have trickled in even to our own country. Failure is a part of the process. Failure is almost going to happen. Failure is a part of it, but also it means losing friends and family. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. Abraham separates from Lot. They go their separate ways. They love each other. They've been living together for a while. They go their separate ways. Family, friends and family, they go their separate ways sometimes. Maybe there's people in your life you're considering whether or not to move on from. You've heard the statistics. You lose half of your friends every 7 years. Your family members are growing distant, maybe because something they did, something you did. Maybe it's no one's fault. You just feel like you're growing away, and you've got to consider those things. It's not even any hard feelings. But adventure is going to cost us something. And sometimes it costs you friends and family too. Another thing you need to understand about adventure, guys, is that adventure develops us. It changes us. It grows us. It's not just, and Louis Vuitton's right about that, it doesn't make us who we are, but it does change who we are becoming over time. It shapes our experiences. It did the same thing for Abraham. Look at halfway through verse 5 in chapter 12. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. So Abraham arrives to the land God sent him. He's going in, he struts in, and I don't know about you, but if God told me he was reserving a land for me, I'm thinking it's ready. I'm thinking it's like a condo. You open it up, it's beautiful. Things are folded, right? Smells nice. Abraham gets to the land of milk and honey, as it's going to be called, and he gets there, and what does he see? Canaanites. Just a murderous pagan group of people and child sacrifice. That's it. I thought this was the land God had given him. I thought this was going to be the land. I'm telling you, what I would expect is like You know, you walk in, you got the spa. You know when you go into the hotel and that screen is on there that you can't, the remote won't change it, but you see like the beds and the spa and you're like, oh man, big giant grapes, bowls of pistachios, vines to swing from, hot springs. That's the land of milk and honey I'm expecting. And he walks in, he goes, oh, that guy just got his head cut off. Oh, there's another war. This is the land. He's like, is this the map? Like, no, this is the land. He could have been expecting one thing, but he gets developed over time to realize that, hey, Abraham, this is not your story. You see, if this story was about Abraham, this would be a failure of a story. Because Abraham does not get the win here. He gets loss after loss, failure after failure. But if he sees this story as the bigger story, that Abraham would need to have Isaac, and Isaac would need to have Jacob, and Jacob, Joseph, and then they're going to go to Egypt, and they're going to help cure famine, and then there's going to be slavery, and then they're going to go into the desert, and then Moses, and all these different things. If he realizes it's God's story and not his story, all of a sudden he can see the success. See, if you go into your life thinking that you're the one that everything is supposed to circle around, and that you're the main character of your story, when things don't go right, you're not going to know what to do. But if your life is a part of God's great story of bringing Christ into the world and reconciling the world to himself, then your failure becomes a tool to develop you, to grow you, to shape you, to make you something more for God's great story. When I got to San Francisco, I thought I was going to spend my entire life there. I did. I'm from there. I thought I was going to live there forever. And when I got there and we started planting, we're going through this 3, 4, 5 years, like things are going really well. We finally got the resources to start the church, and we got the building and the people. We've got people in our home on Tuesday night and Wednesday night and Thursday night. This is an amazing thing happening, and we're tracking, and people are encouraged by what we're doing. We're serving the community, serving marginalized communities. And then something happens. Coronavirus. And all of a sudden, the whole city stops, the whole world stops. And all of the flourishing that was happening stopped. And people started moving away. You lost friends, they moved away. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to question things about my role here and why I'm supposed to be here. And everything was going well, and I don't understand. But I thought that I was going to just show up here. I was going to be one of the big pillars in the city that's going to help the entire city come to know Christ, and I'll live happily ever after. And then this massive comet hits my life and wrecks it. And all of a sudden my kids are unhappy and they're not flourishing. My wife's unhappy, she's not flourishing. And we still have to look at our lives and go, is this even the place for us anymore? And we leave. I remember leaving that place going, man, I'm a failure. I didn't do it right. I thought this was supposed to go differently. And it didn't. And I don't know what to do with my life. And I felt like, man, not only did I fail, I am a failure to my core. But now, I'm here. And I'm here, and I really love being here. And I love being at Doxa, and I love being in the Seattle area, and we used to live here before. My wife's from here. I love it here, and I'm truly honored to be a part of your church, to serve alongside you. I deeply love that. And I wouldn't be the person that I am, and I'm not perfect, but I wouldn't be the person I am now if I hadn't gone through what I went through there. And even though in that moment, I felt like this is the end of, this is going to be where my story sort of hits its crescendo, climax, whatever you want to call it, boom, happily ever after, this is it. All of a sudden, everything comes crashing down, and I go, man, this is an absolute failure. And God uses that to make me who I am so I could come to the next chapter. The key, though, is when you turn the page on the chapter, it's not my story I'm turning the page on, it's God's story. And if you see it like that, failure becomes a tool. God uses failure in your adventures to prepare and to develop you for what's next in his story, not yours. Because the failures that happen to you, if it's your story, it's a bad story. But if it's God's great story, you know it's going on for generations. And God's going to leverage those failures to make you something new. You have an opportunity. How many of you have stopped your life's adventure because you thought failure meant that you were on the wrong path? Some of you have quit something God has called you to do because you failed at it. And you thought because you failed, I should stop doing it and do something else. No, failure is a tool in the hands of a good God and Savior. It's an instrument in the hands of a Redeemer. He leverages failure for growth. If you're the main character of your story, well, then you should just close the book now. You did fail. It's over. Failure. But if it's God's story, God can always use those things. Some of you got some real deep-seated thinking to do when you get home and some prayer to do. And you got to take up something you've laid down a long time ago because you thought failure was the end. No. Failure was the tool. Failure was the tool that God used. Okay. So it leads me to this last thing here. We know a little bit about trust in adventure. We're learning about how adventure develops us. How can we begin to use adventure of life, like these mini adventures we go on, like sports or careers or recreation, or how do we use those things for like evangelism and discipleship? And is that even possible? And so in order to set this up, there's one big statement you need. I want to say again that I've already said it many times, but I just want to put it up here for you. Listen to this. Partaking in adventure absolutely reveals God. This is not something you do set aside from God. It's something that reveals him. When you go on adventures, you get to experience all the goodness that God offers. It's this wonderful thing. And many times you have a lot of fun doing it. You have fun, you laugh, you cry, you get angry. There's all these different things. You experience joy. Even those people that are not Christians, you cannot argue that you love adventure. You love it. We all love it. Of course, my friends here, if you're not a Christian and you love adventure, you have to remove God from it, of course, because you don't believe in him. But I still would argue that the reason even non-Christians seek out adventure is because of God's glory. You enjoy God's glory even though you don't know it. You do. God reveals himself in adventure, and even when the non-Christian can't put their finger on it, they say things like, I can find God in nature. I don't need to go to church. Some of you have said that. I don't need to go to church. I'll just find God in nature. Well, you don't obey God just going in nature. You can experience God's wonder and glory there, though. You can. You don't get the full picture of God, but you can experience him. You can feel who God is. You can see his wonder in his creation. Absolutely. So you can find God in nature. But how much better would your adventures be if you knew the author of the one who invented your adventure? Like, how much better would that be? I mean, think about it. What if someone said to you, I really, really love this song. This is my favorite song ever. Like, listen to this song. Oh, really? Who sung it? I don't care. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Who wrote it? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. I just love this song. Is that true? Or do we like the song more but when we know who wrote it and why, right? The name among all names that shall not be spoken, that we talk about more than really even Peter, James, and John. Taylor Swift. The reason why you all, and I say you all on purpose because not me, really enjoy Taylor Swift, the first thing you say to me is, she writes her own music. That's why she's so powerful, or whatever. I don't know what word you use. That's why she's so great. She writes her own songs. So you mean to tell me if she sung songs that she didn't write, it wouldn't be as powerful? Yeah. You ever go to an art gallery and you walk in and you go, what a fantastic painting. This is beautiful. Who drew it? It doesn't matter. In fact, I don't think anyone drew it. I think it was a cosmic accident in which the paint just flew into place. But I love it for what it is. Isn't it more glorious to know that the author put each spot where they did for a specific reason for you to uncover and to see? Isn't that more valuable? Isn't that more cool? The other day, I did what I shouldn't do, which is scroll through YouTube too much. And I came across a new song from my favorite artist, which is always a fun time. So I click it, I'm listening, man, this is awesome. Like, this is like one of the best songs I think I've ever heard from an artist. And so I'm listening to it. It's a long song. They usually make short songs now, and I'm listening to it. And I do what I never should have done, which is go to the comments. And I get to the first comment. You know what I see? This is AI. AI. Wait a second. I feel robbed, cheated. that this great song was created by a computer, that my favorite artist didn't put their heart and soul into the song to make it, that it's not even real. Now, if you heard a song like that, would that drain the color from your face? Oh, well, it's just a computer made it, right? Exactly, that's my point. Some of us are out in adventure land, enjoying the wonderful paintings and the wonderful songs and don't know anything about the artist. So as fun as you think adventure is as a non-Christian, let me tell you, when you know the artist, it gets way more fun. The glory all of a sudden becomes more. When you see the sunsets and you see the different colors and you think someone placed that color there, placed this cloud here, lowered the sun at just the perfect angle, placed that mountain there. All of a sudden, you see it through a different lens. You're robbing yourself of experiencing the goodness of adventure without a God. You're out there listening to AI music. And is it fun to listen to? Sure. But is it better than the real thing? It's not. So for those of you that are longing to be evangelists with your adventure, bring people along with you in your adventures and give him glory while you do it. Through the fun. You can be more joyous than someone without Jesus when you're going on an adventure because you know the author of adventure. And you can laugh harder and cry louder and scream more and celebrate more because you know the artist. And you'll speak something into someone's soul because they know and they feel it, but they're seeing you experience it. You go, why do you experience it like that? Because Jesus did this. That's why your fun is way stronger. Bring people along with you in your adventures, even through fun, but also through failure. Because those that don't know Jesus, my friends, when you fail, that's oftentimes the end of your story. And even if you rebound, your story eventually ends in about 70 to 80 years. But for those of you that are Christians, your failure becomes a tool for your development and growth in the next part of the story. And eventually you're gonna get the baton out and you're gonna pass that to your kids or pass it to the people you've influenced. The story continues. It always continues. You don't get that without Jesus. And bring people along in your adventures through achievement. When you achieve things, pass the glory that you receive right on to God. God, you gave me this. You gave me the tools, the brains, the thoughts to be able to accomplish this. I'm giving it right to him. And what might that say to a world that desires achievement and growth and performance and arrogance and for people to beat their own chest when they succeed? And you can say, no, this isn't about me. This is about him, and this is why I do it. Achievement, failure, and fun. You have an opportunity to influence people at a deeper level in adventure with those three tools than anybody else can. So I recently just got back from Hawaii, and that was quite an adventure. I got to coach some sports out there at a camp with my wife. And you know what's the best part of any vacation or adventure? Do you know what the best part is? Of course you do. It's the beginning, right? It's the beginning. Like, the best part of a trip to Hawaii is what? You know? The plane ride on the way over. It is. You'll never find a happier place on the planet than a trip leaving SeaTac headed to Hawaii. I mean, you got software engineers on that. Mahalo, aloha. They are never happier. The Seattle Free does not exist. It is gone. They are relaxed. It is such a fun trip over there. What's the worst part of any trip, any vacation, any adventure? It's the end. It's the end, right? And if you've ever been on a plane from Seattle to Hawaii or from Hawaii to Seattle, this is the most melancholic place on planet Earth. Like, not the saddest, but it's very melancholy. Yeah, it gets like self-loathing. You're like, oh man, what am I gonna do? And you're flying back into the clouds, just wincing every passing cloud. Oh no. You can feel the mahalo, aloha leaving my body. And you can just feel the Seattle freeze coming back, right? It's sad, right? You can feel it. There is such a high from going on an adventure, but just like that, once you finish the adventure, boom, the high is gone. And all of a sudden, it lasts momentarily, maybe for a day, for a week, even a month. You have that high of the adventure you went on, but just like that, the next adventure needs to show itself, or else I don't know what I'll do with myself. What if you and we could be on a never-ending adventure? Wouldn't that be cool? If we could be on an adventure that never ended, like the never-ending story or something, right? Like, wouldn't that be crazy, right? Guys, the reason you and I, we desire adventure so much is because we long to be on one forever. We actually do want that. You see the stories of adventure that you and I read about and watch and go on, they all point to the greatest adventure ever. And it's one that's still going on right now. The Imago Dei in us, it resonates with stories of adventure because they reflect the greatest story that's ever been told. We long for that story. And we all love adventure stories that mirror this battle between good and evil, and they resonate with us most deeply because we all sense evil. We long for it to be destroyed. We know it's going to take a mighty enemy to overcome it, and we can't wait till the day it happens. We want that. That adventure, guys, is the adventure God has been on from the beginning. This is the adventure in the beginning since the creation of the world. It's the adventure that's propelled Abraham to birth Isaac, to Jacob, to Joseph, to Egypt, to the Red Sea, to the desert, to King Solomon and King David, all the way down to Jesus Christ. One family line, one massive adventure, bringing about the reconciliation of the world back to God's self. This is the amazing adventure that God is on. Jesus came into the world, lived perfectly. By the way, facilitated sinful people along the way, facilitated his own death. Make no mistake, Jesus says, no one takes from my life from me. I lay it down and I pick it up. And then he crosses the biggest chasm that's ever been, death. And he resurrects. This is risky business we're talking about here. This is a serious adventure. Anyone who believes in Jesus, guys, will then recover and become saved. But that's not all you get. Not only do you get saved, you get to participate with God in his story as a co-missionary forever until he comes back. That's what deeply you're after. So instead of embarking on your summer adventure, hoping that they'll make you who you are, as Louis Vuitton says, use your next adventure for it to point you to who God is, who is the main character of the greatest story ever told. And man, you get to play a part in that. It's pretty cool. And so it is. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for an opportunity to open your word. I'm thankful for my friends who, even after school gets out, Lord, school's out this week, we still come to church hoping and hungry that you would do something special for us. I pray as we plan big adventures, mini adventures, that some of us would think about moving across the country, taking new jobs, marrying, raising children, whatever it is, maybe even planting churches, playing in rec volleyball leagues, Lord. All of the things. Would you empower us with your spirit to do so? And would you show us that failure is not the end, it is a tool for development in the hands of a great God and great Savior, who is the main character of the story, not us. We love you. And so it is. Amen.